I knew this would be hard, but this has been quite hard. All right. All right. Hi, my name is Kyra Lindsay Ng, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak today. I've been asked to speak about Karate Canada and Gus's involvement, maybe share some memories. But the truth is, Gus and I have worked together well before days of Karate Canada. And before that, I was a student in his classroom 20 years ago. I was the U of T student that had advanced standing and was joining a second year York class. And being from U of T at York is a lot like being from Toronto to the rest of Canada. There's a little animosity there. And I remember my first class with Gus and him telling me, "Oh, I'm gonna make you bleed red by the time I'm done with you." And without thinking, I was like, "Well, what's blue on the inside?" And I don't remember what he said or if he said anything, but I do remember his smile, and it was like, "Okay, game on." And that was it. That was the first jabs were thrown, and that was the start of our mutually agreed upon playful sparring, verbal sparring, always taking cheap shots at each other, or trying to make the other one laugh or embarrass it. It's good. It's keep on our toes, and it's actually one of the things I very much enjoyed about working with Gus is joking around and having fun. The first time that we worked together was actually the first time I worked with him was the World Championship Kickboxing Championships in New York. I was still a student last year in the program, and it was just volunteer, but I jumped at the opportunity to do any kind of martial arts. Like, I'm from Taekwondo, and it was kickboxing and Muay Thai, and it was great. It was a great experience. And what I took from that was I really enjoyed how organized all the medical stuff was, and that really sit with me as I went forward and started doing my own tournament coverage. A few years after I was certified, I took over the Toronto Open Taekwondo tournament, and it took me a few years to be brave enough to ask Gus if he wanted to come and to work with me. And when he said yes, I was like, "What? Okay, so he's coming." But it was working at those events that I really realized how much fun I have working with Gus and how much I really enjoyed working with Gus. It turns out we have a lot in common. Height's not one of them, but we both are really particular about how we set everything up and all the background stuff, and everything has its place, and everything's very organized. And then when the event starts, we're both very much into having a practical joke or a prank, or just having some fun while we work at the event as well. Whether it's a fake hand in the cooler or an X-ray picture on a cell phone, if you've seen the picture, you know the joke. We'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it doesn't matter how long the day was. It goes by so fast, and you have a lot of fun. And that's one of the things that Gus has always been great at, is bringing fun into whatever he's doing, whether it's teaching an AT skill, whether he's working with the team. Always making it fun and enjoyable for the students or the athletes or whoever's involved. And it's just one of the wonderful things about Gus that I think everybody really enjoys about working with him. Karate Canada comes into the picture in 2013. So I was asked to do a national championships for Taekwondo Canada a few months earlier, and it was the same venue that Karate Canada had secured for their national championships. So just by talking with Taekwondo Canada, they get my name, they call me, "Hey, do you want to work Karate Nationals?" I was like, karate. I'm a Taekwondo person, but I was like, why not? Let's just try this out. And I had a lot of fun. There's good people there, and from there, they asked me if I would want to be involved with some of their training camps when they're in Toronto, their summits. So the first one they organized, I'm actually only available for half the camp because I'd already committed to a World Championships with Taekwondo Canada. And the first and only person I think of calling is Gus. I'm like, "Gus, got this thing. You gotta come. Let's see what we can do here." And it's actually Gus who is responsible for AT being with Karate Canada. I might have worked that first national championships, but it wasn't really. I was pregnant with my second kid. I had no ambitions of taking over an organization and doing what needed to be done. But Gus was able to put in a concussion policy, put a bunch of policy procedure, risk management stuff. We had doctor clearance notes. We had our PSOs talking to our NSOs. Like all that was Gus. And the reason that ATs started traveling with their senior and junior team to World and Pan Am Championships at Karate Canada was because of Gus and all the work that he did. I basically sort of took a step back, but Gus never pushed me aside. He just kept me in the loop, kept dragging me out for a half day here, half day there, and then when I was ready to be more involved, he just pulled me right back in as if I had never really stepped aside. And we shared the national team together. We worked together on concussion education and other policies and procedures, upgrading those, the COVID stuff. And, that was really, at the time, I didn't really appreciate it maybe for really what it was. But I think the whole time it was this mentorship and he was building me to be a better leader, and to one day step in and take over for that. At the time, I didn't really see it as such. I was just, okay, this is what we're doing, this work. I was just having fun, learn new stuff. Like him, I'm always observing, I'm always taking it in. I wasn't really thinking about the end goal. I'm a classic underachiever. But eventually it was like, okay, I'm stepping back and you're stepping in. And I was ready because of all the stuff that we had done together, and how he went out of his way to involve me in this building process. And I'm very grateful for that. And Karate Canada we had such a great group to work with. And every time that, as Gus was slowly doing less and less, every time I would be somewhere, they'd be like, how's Gus? So whether it was our coaches like Kat, Pam, or Heather, or administrators like Credit Boki, always asking, how's Gus? Some of our original athletes, so athletes that we worked with from the very beginning, and those would be like the Toshi, Chris D'Souza Costa, Kate Campbell, who's still around. And then some of our more current champions like Melissa Braddock and Hayajima, they're always asked when I'm with them, hey, I know you got your Gus friends, how's Gus? Tell him I say hi. And he is one of those people that he really has a lifelong impact on. Even though he's worked at a couple tournaments or whatever, he cares about people, and it's genuine. And that really touches people in a way that they hold it true to their heart. I wish that everybody had an opportunity to speak, because there's so many people that have things to say for you, Gus, to you, Gus. And that's just Gus's way. He's always observing, he's stepping back and just making things happen for people, whether they know it or not. And that's just what he does. And one thing that really pops to mind is shortly after we graduated, a couple of my classmates and I were at a conference in Montreal, and Gus comes up to my classmate Vince Fong and is like, hey, have you considered working for Cirque du Soleil? Vince is like, I don't know, sure, right? He's like, great, I got you an interview. Did you have a shirt and tie? And Vince is like, no. He's like, come upstairs, you can borrow one of mine. And that was just a Gus thing to do. Vince got the job, by the way. But that was just what he did. He was always looking out for everybody. His acts of kindness, they're so genuine, and they just, without considering, there's no personal gain. Carolyn Zeff, a good friend of mine, went into AT at Sheridan because she met Gus at a Lifemark Health. She didn't go to York. She wasn't one of his students, but he connected with her and he inspired her and she pursued it. And that's the kind of outreach that empowers that Gus has to reach people and build athletic therapy, not just for York, no personal benefit there for himself at all, just to see the profession grow. Even the students that I get George Brown now and stuff, the stories they would have to tell, like, oh, and they're so inspired, and they're still talking about those random Montreal Canadiens questions at the end of your tests. Yeah, let it go, Gus. But I feel very, very privileged to have had so much time with Gus. I really do. I feel, whether it was our traditional breakfast at Perkins before training camps, collaborating on stuff over dinner at my house or yours, those those not daily, but those random phone check-ins, right? Just, hey, what's up? That makes you feel, like, lets you know he cares about you, make sure that, things are going well for you, and it gives, you a chance to make sure things are going well with him. And I always appreciate those opportunities. Even when you're sitting behind me at AGMs trying to make me laugh and then trying to volunteer me for committees that I don't want to be a part of, I do value that time. Every time that you make me laugh, you know, I just love that we get to work, spend so much time together. We'll have to edit some of this stuff out because it's getting hard to talk. But yeah, it's been a privilege. I truly do value. I look up to Gus, and not just for good eye contact, but because I'm in awe of him and everything that he's accomplished, and the presence. Just the influence you have over people. It's really inspiring, and I really can't imagine life in AT without you. But I'm gonna hold you close to my heart, and yeah, Gus, thank you for everything.
Hi, Gus. Saw you back in December and didn't think that in these 6 months I would see you the same. When I met you, I can never forget that day, because for the first 2 years of my studies here, when I moved in 1997, everyone, once they found out I was Greek, asked me if I knew Gus. And after 2 years, I met the infamous Gus at a placement in Oakville. And I think as much as you were a teacher at a different program, I think I felt a friend and a new friend bond the minute we met. And from there, that bond just grew. From taking courses together, staying with you at your home on a weekend while commuting to St. Catharines and sharing a pint or two in the hot tub, to traveling to conferences, cigars together with brandy, and of course, traveling to examine at the CATA level. Shared a lot of great times due to this amazing profession we chose. I look up to you as a mentor, as a teacher who still had a professional clinical practice, who would put practicing what you preach in place every day. You taught me so much, you guided me so much in my early start, what courses to take, what type of practitioner I want to be, yet deep down you still continued to put in hours on field placements. It was impressive how you kept pushing to promote this profession, no matter what else you did, both as an educator and as a practitioner. But more so, the friendship grew because of how I respected you outside of that clinical room. As a human being, you found happiness and positivity in everything, and that's one thing I'll never forget. I remember it's the feeling that I have and had every time we spent time together. Even if it was a short while, it carried on forever. And I remember dinner 6 months ago and how you looked and the photo we have together. And that's how I'll always remember you. The feeling I have in my heart is pure love, because you made me appreciate that life is about enjoying and putting everything out there to live a good life, helping others while still staying humble and a lot of pride in yourself. So I want you to know that you have spread that to me, and I'm doing my best to continue that life in how I spread to my patients, my family, and friends. And as a dear friend, and what I like to call a brother, I want to send you my love. Because one thing you are is an inspiration to me, and I think that everyone else, and I can speak for everyone knowing that. So God bless you, Gus, in everything.
In the 32 years that Gus has been an educator with York University, he has made a profound impact, not just on me, but on every student he crossed paths with. Gus was not just a teacher to me, and I'm fortunate to say he'd also become a colleague while we worked together with Karate Canada, as well as a friend. It is so challenging to summarize all he did for me and the difference he made in the lives of so many students, athletes, patients, and colleagues. Gus made an impact on the AT students no matter how you saw it. His SBL, or shame-based learning tactic, allowed me to thrive as an AT student. It was not an easy approach and at times was a bit stressful, but it set us up for success. Gus taught us how to respond in various situations and to think on our feet under pressure. I can attribute so much of my success as an AT to Gus. Gus was my biggest supporter, not just in acting as a reference for my master's application and for jobs, but he also supported me through life's challenges, including giving relationship advice. The only advice from Gus that I did not choose to take was if my then boyfriend did not propose after 2 years, I should walk away. Sorry, I didn't listen, Gus. And after 6 years of dating, he finally did propose, and we are very happily married. But despite ignoring the one piece of advice, I knew then, and I know now, that the care and support that we all received from Gus was special. I just graduated from athletic therapy at York when Gus gave me a call asking if I'd be interested in helping with the Karate Canada Summit, which is essentially a training camp for Canadian athletes. As a new grad looking for work and experience in different sports, this was a massive opportunity for me. And while there's a few times that weekend that I did question why I'd said yes, for example, when athletes were throwing people over their shoulders and onto the floor, I was so grateful for the chance to work with a national organization and to have exposure in a new sport. Almost 10 years later, I'm still involved with the team, and I'm so grateful to Gus for giving me that start. Even later, when we were working camps together, Gus was always a teacher. He would teach me new treatment techniques or interesting ways of assessing something while working alongside him. Gus was always such an amazing teacher because he didn't just tell you what to do, he would model what it meant to be an exemplary AT. Watching Gus with the athletes and the staff of the organization, I learned so much about how to approach athletes and address sensitive topics, like letting them know they cannot participate due to the risk. This is not something that they teach in school, and it can be an incredibly challenging part of the job. But seeing Gus approach the athletes with so much care, concern, and empathy, it was easy to see how that made such a difference to the Karate Canada athletes and staff. The example that Gus set has been instrumental in the way that I approach situations. I deeply appreciate that and all of the lessons I'd had from him, whether it was in the classroom, on the field, or in life. Thank you, Gus, for all that you've done over the years as a teacher, mentor, colleague, and a friend, not just to me, but to so many students and athletic therapists in Ontario and nationally. You will be missed. And because you've always been my Montreal Canadiens ally in a sea of Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I'll leave you with a final go Habs go.
Some of the finer memories working with Gus would be in Africa with Team Canada. He was there for the 2 weeks that we were there. He was our athletic therapist, and all the parties and all the good times always happened in Gus's room. Whether you were an athlete, a coach, or even a parent, it's just everybody always seemed to gravitate where Gus was. Everybody wanted to be around him. One of the memories wasn't necessarily about him, it was about Stella. One of the fights, one of the African athletes got their head cut open. It looked like somebody hit them with a hatchet. It was actually Adam Henson hit this kid with a knee, and he needed to go have stitches, and they needed to take him to the hospital, but it cost money. And Gus goes, well, you guys don't need to go anywhere. Well, Stella right here can do it. And she was knitting a quilt or a sweater or something. She literally looked up. She didn't have a care in the world for fighting. She stopped what she was doing. She pulled out a fanny pack from the side, pulled out everything she needs. She's like, the only thing I don't have is freezing. But if you want stitches, we can do it right now. You can lay down on this table. And Gus is like, see, I told you, she's got it. And they laid the guy down, and she stitched this guy's forehead right then and there ringside, which was pretty crazy. Back then I was just a poor East End kid from London, and he noticed that I wasn't buying very much food in Africa, and he came up to me, and he knows I would never admit it, that if I needed money or anything, I would never ask for it. He goes, Jesse, I noticed that when we go to the grocery stores, you're not eating much, or you're not buying much, you're not doing much. Everybody else seems to be enjoying themselves. Like, are you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm okay, I'm good. You know, I can eat the food here, everything's fine. The guy actually found what room I was staying in and actually put money under my pillow for me without even, I knew it was him, and I knew he did it, and I know he didn't want me to know that it was him that did it. But obviously we just had the talk, and then later that night I find that I have money in my room, so I could go and enjoy, go out and eat Nando's chicken with the team when they went, because it's from Africa, or when we're at the grocery store, buy stuff that I didn't need, or that wasn't provided, just extra stuff to do. And I know that was him, and we never really talked about it, but he knows that I think if not, he'll know now that I know it was him that gave me that money. And I said I would pay him back, and I always remember him going, pay me back for what? And I'm like, oh, that money that you gave me. He was the only one. And he still tries to play it off like he doesn't know what I'm talking about, but he knows what I'm talking about. So that it made life in Africa the second week there a little easier, because I had a little extra money, because I didn't have much money back then to do the things, because those trips we had to fund ourselves. They didn't cover it. So again, being a poor kid from East London, he definitely made it a little easier and a little more fun for me. I had Gus in my corner a few times. Again, we can go back to Africa, where I was fighting for the K1, for the WPKA K1 championship. It was like the main event for them. And I was fighting this huge African guy. He definitely was a few weight classes above me. Nobody on Team Canada wanted to fight him. So Matt's like, you know what, we'll give him Jesse. Out of all the people on the team, I thought that they were going to use a few other athletes that I thought were better than me, but they used me. And I went out there and I fought like a scared little boy. And I remember after the first round, Maz came down on me and he was yelling at me saying, if you fight like that, I'm not going to be here for the third round. You're fighting scared. You're fighting to survive. You're not fighting to win. You can beat this guy. You're better than that. There's obviously a few more choice swear words, which is very weird because Maz never swears. And I'm looking at Gus and his eyes are wide open. Like he's never seen Mazal Nawaz act this way or talk that way. And essentially it was how the conversation ended. He didn't give me any advice in between rounds. He just said that he was very upset and that he was going to tell everybody back home that I was a scared little boy and I was afraid to fight. Came all the way to Africa and I was scared to fight. He said, if I do that again, I'm not going to be here the next round. And then I literally looked over at Gus, like, is this guy for real? And Gus looked at me and he was just like, you might want to fight because, I've never seen him act like this. So I believe him. And I don't think I can do this by myself. So go out there and kick. And it lit a fire under my ass. And I went out there and I beat the crap out of this guy for the next 2 rounds and ended up winning. And there's a picture. I know Gus and Maz aren't in it, but it's me and the guy that I'm fighting. And it literally looks like it's me against this giant. I might be able to find that one for you. But that was one of the moments where I've never seen Gus be actually worried for my safety because Maz was doing this. He's like, and even when the fight was over, Gus said he had never seen Maz talk to anybody like that or act like that. So he was thrown off. So it's good that I can bring out certain characteristics out of people, and just to have Gus there, looking over at him and be like, is he for real or is he just joking? He's like, oh no, he's very, very real. Other than that, other good memories that I've had with Gus. He's been a part of my team for every title fight that I've had. I've had 9 professional titles. I've needed to see him and be treated by him for all of them. Good memories from Gus is, I asked him for advice on how to propose to my wife. He gave me a couple of good ideas. He's always a guy that I don't talk to him just about sports. I talk to him about life. So anytime I've ever had any issues whether it be athletic or personal or anything like that. I always go talk to Gus, and he always gives me advice because, again, he's that dude that everybody goes and talks to. It doesn't matter where you are, whether he's on the soccer field, whether he was at York University, whether he was at a banquet dinner. It doesn't matter where you are. Everybody, Gus has got experience in probably every field of life that I've never seen, and everybody always goes to him for advice. And it's good to have a guy like that in my corner, not just for fighting, but for life in general. And I needed to have him, just from everything that he's done for me, I needed to have him in my corner for one of my UFC fights. I know he said he wanted to do it, but it's like I just wanted him there because, not because I needed treatment for the week of the fight, because the UFC at that time has, actually they still do, they have everybody, anything you need, they'll get it for you. The UFC never used to have that, so it's not like I needed Gus there to treat me. It was good to have him on hand because he knows me better than anybody else. He gets straight to the point. But I just know that he has a world of experience cornering multiple fighters at high-level events. And, I just wanted him to see what it was like from my end from the UFC. So it was good to have him there. And it's always a good time having Gus around. It's not a stressful situation. He made getting to the weight cut good. He helped me out through my weight cut. I dropped my phone in a bathtub because I cut my water weight in a hot bath. He just instantly reached in there, grabbed it, pulled it out, dried it off, everything. He saved my phone. He put ice on me. He knew what to do without even having to tell him what to do. During the weight cut, after the weight cut, he helped relax me. So it's like my heart rate's racing, I'm starving, I'm thirsty. He did a bunch of pressure point releases, which I'd never lost more weight in my life. I've done this cut religiously for like 10 years, but just with him there and the stuff that he did and helping me out, I set a record by like 3 pounds of most weight I've cut with him being there. So it just made cutting weight, rehydrating, having him there and everything else, it just made it that much better to have him in my corner. It sucks that the fight didn't go my way. I mean, I did take an illegal shot. I got kneed to the face when I was on the ground. So I took an illegal blow to the face, and he knew I had a C2 anterior rotation, which was making it hard for me to move my head anyways, and then I got kneed and it really jammed it up. He was yelling at the doctors on the sideline, like, because it was an illegal blow, they should have stopped it, and they kind of coerced me back into fighting because a couple of fights had already stopped via illegal shots, so they obviously didn't want that to happen again. Gus was very upset with the commission, and I just remember when the fight was over, he was already in the face of the ringside doctor, yelling at them, he knew, I'm like, how the hell do you even know he knew them by name, and he was telling me how he'd met them at a couple of conferences before, and he was pointing fingers in there, and this one thing, Gus is a big dude, and he was in their face like, you guys are doing this all wrong, you shouldn't have, and the thing is, security didn't do anything about it. Like, normally they would escort him out, but it's like he was calling them by name, so the security's like, we don't know this guy, but he seems to know these guys on a personal level, and he was yelling at them, and it should have gone down as a disqualification, if not a no contest, instead of a win for the other guy. But it was good because none of my other coaches or not even my manager did anything like that, but Gus went to bat for me, and it was great having him there for, like I said, the weight cut and for the fight, and just for even standing up for me to the doctors in the Vegas commission after the fight when the illegal shot happened, and how they kind of pretty much forced me to keep going, even though I wasn't ready or healthy enough to keep going. I didn't even have my wits about me, and he knew it. And then just, like I said, the wealth of experience that he had afterwards, being able to console me. It's like, yeah, you lost, but you shouldn't have. Like, you did everything. You showed how tough you were by eating a knee to the face when you were on the ground and everything else. Just having him there afterwards was always good. And then, he's always been an integral part of my camp, all my fights after that. So I make sure, even if I don't need to see him for treatment or purposes, I always make sure that I see him the week of my fight, just to get some reassurance and whether we talk about fighting or we talk about whatever, or like whether he treats me or not. Sometimes I'll just sit on the table and we'll just talk. And I've needed to, it's not that I need to do it, I just like doing it. For probably the last 3 or 4 years for all of my fights, because it just helps me out, and it really sucks that I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. What would I describe Gus's legacy to me? He even though I think it's too late because I'm 38, turning 39, he wants me to do what he does. He wants me to go to school and be an osteopath and an athletic therapist. And I go, I think it's a little too late for that because I still plan on fighting for a few more years because that's my love and passion. But he says my knowledge and understanding of the human body. And I was like, you know what, Gus, it's a little different. I just understand my body and what's wrong with me. And being with you over the years, listening to you, teach me, or not teach me, but talk to me about all the things, like, because I can go to him and I'm like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I think, and I explained to him how it happened and why it happened. And he goes, you're absolutely right. And then he'll do some treatments and he'll be like, so what's that? I was like, no, you know what? I think it's this. And I've said some things that absolutely shocked and stunned him. And it doesn't matter where it is, whether it's a repeated problem or something new. He's just absolutely shocked on what I know about it, how it happened, and what I need to do to fix it. Or it's like, I think you should try this. And he actually listens when I tell him, I think maybe you should try doing this one to fix it. And he's blown away about the things that I know. So it's as much as I would love to be an osteopath or an athletic therapist, I don't think it's really in the cards because I don't have that much time to go back to school for 5 to 7 more years. If I was like, hey, Gus, if you plan on teaching until, I'm 50 years old when I'll be done, I'll think about it when I'm retired. But other than that, I'll just, stick to what I do. But like I said, without Gus, I wouldn't have won my career would have been over years ago. And I'm afraid to keep going on without him because he's the only guy that's ever been able to fix my T1. He's the only guy. And I've seen 2 dozen, 3 dozen therapists, osteopaths, chiropractic, whatever, you name it. I've seen them. They don't know how to fix at least 3 of the reoccurring injuries that I have. So I'm very, very, very nervous continuing my career without him. And these are the repeated injuries that I have all the time. So, I wish, I told, before all this information came down, I told him, I'm like, you can't stop doing what you're doing until I stop doing what I'm doing. And we had like a handshake agreement. He's like, no, I'll keep doing what I'm doing as long as you keep doing what you're doing. And it sucks that something out of our control has been thrown into the mix. So, like I said, my legacy of all my fighting and everything I've done is his legacy too, because it wouldn't have happened without him. So, and there's like, same with Mazam Nawaz. He wouldn't have been able to do any of this, like, well, not any, but the majority of the stuff that he did. I remember Gus telling me stories about Maz and how he had to do this and had to do that for him and all these other things so he could compete. There's probably countless people that he's been that guy for. So it's you don't have to look at Gus's legacy. It's like everybody else's legacy is what it is because of him. So he's going to live on through all of these other people, and they can't say that they've done the things they did without him. So one of the last things, I know it's completely unrelated, but this is the marvel of Gus. I remember being at his clinic in Burlington waiting, and a lady walked in, and he looked at her and she looked at him, and like they knew because he treated her before, and he goes, 6 weeks or 8 weeks? And she looked at him confused, and she's like, I'm 6 weeks. I just got the test done. He's like, get over here. And he put his hands on her hips and her stomach area, and he's like, you're going to have a boy. And she didn't know. She just found out that she was pregnant. Gus, just by looking at her, knew that she was pregnant. And I remember having to come back and see him a few weeks later, and he was right. He found out, he knew that she was pregnant, and he knew the sex of the baby just by feeling around. And she was completely blown away because I asked him about it. He's like, oh yeah, she came back, and she's having a boy. And I was like, how the hell did you know that? Like, he's just like, I know my patients, I know things, I've been around it. And it's just crazy how intuitive Gus is about everything. Like, he's one time, like, just him watching me walk up to his door on the cameras, he knew what was wrong. So it's like, just by the way I was standing, by the way I was walking. There's been other times where he goes, you know what, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're just stressed. You need to relax. I can tell you right now, there's nothing wrong. You look perfectly fine. It's just you feel off because you're stressed. Just how he knows this stuff and what he can do to fix it. It's just absolutely crazy how a person can just understand the human body so well. And like I said, I've seen dozens of other therapists that don't even come close, scratch the surface of just how natural Gus is. It's like he's not even human. He always says, you know what, Jesse, going forward from now, if you ever get treated by somebody, you need to ask them what their background, do you have a sports background, specifically a combat sports background? Because I can explain people the pelvis rotation and injury that I consistently get. They understand it, but they never know how to fix it. And it's like, he understands how to fix it because he's been around combat athletes the whole time. Same with the first rib and everything else. Just a wealth of experience through karate, kickboxing, boxing, mixed martial arts, even soccer. Like, he had professional soccer players saying, I want to hire you year round to come with me, because they didn't feel comfortable with unless Gus was there, you know, pre-treating them before games or anything like that. But one of the things that I wanted to say was I hope everybody knows about the 3 days of Gusmas, because he doesn't understand. I don't know if anybody knows the story, but we always say Happy Gusmas instead of, you know, we Merry Christmas and all that stuff, because he doesn't know the exact date that he was born. His birth certificate says one day, his mom says it's another day. So anytime I go see him around the Christmas, because I'm born December 24th, and he's not sure if he's born the 23rd, the 24th, the 25th, the 26th, or the 27th. He's got 3 different things that say 3 different dates. So they always just celebrate Merry Gusmas at Gus's house. So every time I see him, I don't say Christmas, I say Merry Gusmas, and I don't say Happy Birthday. It's always Gusmas, because we're never sure what day he was born. So there's one thing that I'm going to keep going, is that as soon as the 23rd hits to the 27th, it's Gusmas. Because the amount of time, just the amount of, when you talk about the spirit of giving and everything else, like, he's the Santa Claus of that. Because again, I can go back to when Stella was sick. He didn't need to treat me. He wasn't treating anybody, but he chose to treat me because I had a herniated C6, C7 and a pinched nerve in my shoulder, and I had a fight coming up. He took time away from her to treat me. So that's how I know I was special to him, because he could have been by her side and should have been by her side. But he said the only thing that was making him feel better was making me feel better. So, you know, so it's always that had nothing to do with Gusmas, but that's just what I think about when it comes to the spirit of giving. And so I have the 4 or 5 day holiday around Christmas, which is always going to be Gusmas. Another thing that I know you would want to see, because I was like, I didn't know exactly what this was for. I thought maybe it was just for him and his eyes only, because, you know, Gus and I have a unique relationship that if I spoke on this thing about how Gus and I, you know, people would go, who is this a-hole? And why would Gus have this guy on his, you know, tribute thing like that? Because like I said, Gus and I have a very unique relationship, and I get to see a side of Gus that probably 99% of people don't get to see. We say things that he would never say around other people. He behaves the way I get to see the real Gus, like the Gus that gets to cut loose, that I wish, you know, everybody got to see. And, you know, it's not everybody would like it, but, you know, everybody's human. They have they have good sides, they have dark sides, good times, bad times. And, you know, there's a lot. So I hope he gets to see this part. And I was like, Gus, I'm keeping this clean just for you. And nobody else needs to know the way we talk and the things we say and the jokes we tell. But just know that it was hard for me to keep that quiet. But everybody needs to know that there is a dark side of Gus, and that's the best side of Gus.
I've known Gus Kandilas since 1997. I met Gus when I moved back to Ontario. So I was living in Montreal, and I was receiving service from athletic therapy and osteopathy from an outstanding service provider named Dave Campbell. And when I moved to Ontario, I was hoping that I'd be able to find somebody on Dave's level. And luckily enough, my first physiotherapy osteopathy appointment was with Gus. So I was, we started our relationship, that way. Like I mentioned, I met Gus in 1997. I was definitely on the back end of my playing career. I played professional racquetball for 25 years. And when I met Gus, I was 35. And I figured I maybe had 2 or 3 years left. And I feel like if I wouldn't have met Gus when I met him, I would have had those 2 or 3 years, and that probably would have been it. But I was able to extend my years, which I certainly wanted to. And I ended up playing until I was 42 and won my last world championship in 2002 at the age of almost 41, which it's one of my fondest memories. And Gus played a major role in making sure I was ready to play that tournament. Yes, I mean, there's a few things that come to mind when I think of my time with Gus. I mean, number one was that, you know, he was always very in tune and interested in what was happening, not just with my physical well-being, but mental well-being. And I had so much confidence in Gus that I had basically my entire family go and see him when we required any type of osteopathy or athletic therapy. And one of his first questions almost every appointment would be, you know, how's your family doing? And it wouldn't be just kind of a brush off question. He would ask specifics. So I think one of the things that I really admired about him was that he really cared about not just, you know, your athletic performance, but he cared about your well-being as a person and your family's well-being, which I think is extremely incredible. And he was great at that, and, you know, always has been. And that's one thing that I really give him a lot of credit for. I think that Gus has many abilities, and I think there's one of them. Another main one is that he understood sports very well. So, for example, if I had a major event coming up and it was 6 weeks away and I had a certain injury, we would talk through what I'd be able to do and what I wouldn't be able to do from a training perspective, and always with the goal of being totally ready and healthy as I was, you know, getting on the plane or, you know, however I was traveling to that particular event, knowing that I was ready to go. And because Gus was very much into sports and understood sports, it was easy to talk to him about those things and say, Gus, you know what, I'm really having problems with this, you know, my back or my leg or my neck or whatever, and I really need this to be in this particular condition when I leave. And we would work towards, you know, making sure that I was ready to go and totally ready and prepared. You know, feeling prepared physically obviously helps you make your preparations mentally. And he gave me that ability because he was just in tune with everything, that all of our conversations, and understanding sports made a huge difference, I believe. Yeah, I think, you know, there's so many things that are wrapped into what goes on as we get older in life. And I feel like Gus has always had an amazing approach to life. I mean, both good, when the good happened, I mean, he took that in stride. And when the bad happened, he took it in stride. And, you know, he's going through something that nobody, you know, ever wants to have happen. And it's heartbreaking. It's terrible. It's awful. And, you know, he left me a phone message last week, and he's, you know, he was saying to me, hey, you know what, I think this would be a good idea for your treatment. And I think, I think you should see this person. And, you know, he's the one that's fighting the battle now. And I'd be much more inclined to talk about what his situation is like. And in his altruistic way, I mean, he's always looking past that and thinking about what's going on with others. And I can't imagine the heart and the courage that this has taken, and just his overall attitude is it's so impressive. And I think anybody that knows Gus understands that he has a one-of-a-kind attitude towards life. And I'm just heartbroken that he has to go through this. I know that he was in a very good place and is in a very good place in his life. And I very, very, very sad that this is happening at this point with, so many good years ahead of him. Yes, I think Pathfinder is an excellent term for what Gus is, and also trailblazer. And I think he, getting back to the sports analogy, I think the one thing that I really admire and always thought a lot of with Gus is that he treated his profession much like an athlete would treat their game. So in my case, playing racquetball, it's kind of, there's a number of components that you're always trying to put together and make sure that you are on top of all aspects of your game, whether it's forehand, backhand, agility, your mental process, to make sure that your serve is solid, make sure your serve return, all the components. I believe Gus used that same attitude towards his treatment of people. I think that he was constantly working at getting better. I think he paid attention to people. I think he always was looking for different angles. And one of the things that I always thought was unique, if Gus got to a point where he felt like he couldn't help with a specific issue, he would certainly be happy to make a recommendation and say, you know what, I think this person may be more suited for this particular injury. And I thought that was always outstanding. And I had to have elbow surgery right near the end of my playing days. And he could have said, you know what, I think, you need elbow surgery, go take care of it with your doctor. But he didn't do that. He made sure I saw one of the best in this area and really one of the best in the country at that specific surgery. And without that thoughtfulness and guidance, I'm not sure that, my elbow's fantastic right now and in great shape. I don't know if that would have been the case if Gus didn't make sure that I was taken care of. So I think that attitude towards always working towards being better, I think has really helped him be the trailblazer or pathfinder or whatever term you'd like to use, but it's certainly one that you can follow and use as a kind of like guidelines or blueprint for success in that field.
Well, Gus, I don't know what to say. I remember the good days and how much fun it used to be to go to the conferences, and our summits were so well done. And so many people benefited from the knowledge that we were able to put forward to the membership. That is something that we can be very proud of. So, and you saw the value of and the need for athletic therapy to be a regulated health profession. You were a champion of that. We've fought the good battle, and you not being there when we are so close to becoming a regulated health profession just really sucks. I guess we're all so uncomfortable about talking about cancer, me included. You've been a confidant for me for many, many years. Your calm disposition always helped me when I was president. A point of information, of guidance, even though we all have our faults. So I guess, you had this problem with being a Habs fan. That's one thing. We did share a lot, our love of Scotch. There's some Greek fries and some wings and clogging up our arteries. But I know your health is going to be a real challenge for that. So I guess Paul and I will have to get together and I will have a shot of scotch on the day of your passing. I just wish we could get together to have some Greek French fries and some wings with Polly. Cancer has touched so many people. And you know better than anybody else. So it's a journey we all take alone. And I hope your journey goes well, old friend. Take care. And I hope you have comfort in your final days. Your pal, Drew.
Members, colleagues, and AT allies, as we marking the major milestone that is the 50th anniversary of the Ontario Athletic Therapists Association, busy rebranding, engaged in new promotions, launching new marketing, forging new relationships, and creating new member services and benefits, we have also stopped to take stock of the shoulders upon which we have stood. The people behind establishing and growing a professional association capable of reaching for statutory regulation, a legislative scope of practice, and all the things that would ensure our equal standing against peer professions in Ontario. There have been some terrific Ontario ETs responsible for getting us to this semi-centennial moment. We've been building this moment as the association celebrated the founders and established recognitions such as the Trillium Award and more recently the Inspire Awards to acknowledge those professionals amongst us who had an impact and have practiced as goodwill ambassadors for the profession. This year we've been working on a new category of AT champions to be recognized. It seemed particularly important as there have been forces at play dividing and splitting the community to stop and celebrate those who have always stayed above the fray of pettiness and conducted themselves as true leaders. Those among us who choose to lead, to mentor, and to nudge the profession to greater heights and greater opportunities. We identified the first grouping of these champions, some of who have been OAT members for 40 and 30 years for their careers. They are names and they are people we should not forget. They have earned our respect and our recognition. They have been tireless, not for an award of gratitude, but because it is part of who they are and how they live their professional and personal lives in the service of the greater good. In the process of establishing this Athletic Therapy Ontario Pathfinders Award, we learned we're about to lose one of those remarkable leaders. It's quite unfair and actually unjust. The news had us pivot, and while we were still engaged with the others, we had to move swiftly to build an appropriate tribute to this exceptional athletic therapist who, since achieving certification 40 years ago, has renewed annually as a member and advanced as a volunteer, a committee member, a director, a board chair, in addition to teaching in the AT academic program. There in academia, it was the same pattern, teaching and advancing to tenure professorship with a 32-year record of academic excellence. I'm talking about Gus Kandilas. Gus, who just retired from his York University teaching position and has stepped away from his role with TFC. Gus, who gave time recently to use, as we confirmed, AT competency and skills to satisfy new requirements as we again take up the pursuit of regulation. Gus, who just finished developing an instructional online learning course on concussion while serving on the OATA Concussion Working Group. Gus, who has touched so many students through to seasoned practitioners while opening doors for ATs and making inroads for us nationally as well as Ontario. We will announce the ways in which we will continue to celebrate Gus Kandilas long after he has passed, as a result of the foundations he has laid this profession to thrive and to grow. For now, on behalf of the OAT Board of Directors, past and present, and on behalf of the 50 years of OAT members proud to build the profession through solid deeds and accomplishments, we pay tribute to our wonderful colleague and friend, Gus Kandilas, the inaugural recipient of the Pathfinders Award. Gus will not be forgotten.